Hey everyone, Happy New Year. I have a video for you today that is a story time that is probably way overdue. I know that a lot of you have found my channel through my story times about when I worked at the adult store. And a long time ago, I promised you that I would give you more stories. So today I'm going to tell you guys about shoplifters. In the frequently asked questions video that I made, where I was responding to a lot of y'all's questions and comments, I'm fairly positive that I spoke about the lack of security that we had. So there was 2 different stores that I personally worked at, in a total of 3 that this particular owner had. The one that was open on the weekends and the graveyard shifts did have security that we paid for, but like they were so horrible. They were for the strip club next door that only opened at nights on the weekends. And anytime I needed them, they never showed up. I feel like the only actual security I could rely on was the cleaner, who was the guy who came every night to clean the theater or the cinema that we had upstairs. But even then, he wasn't a security guard, and most often we were working alone. And in that video, I think in that video, I mentioned how my boss really preferred to hire women. From his perspective, he felt that women were the most approachable. And I will say, like, working at the adult store, I learned the significance of being approachable. There were so many people who were like, "You just seem so innocent," or like I could talk to you about anything. And I kind of felt like a bit of a bartender at some parts of my job. But I'm pretty sure in the frequently asked or answered questions video, I spoke about how there was some drunk guys who came in, and we had a lot of demonstrator toys, like a lot of the toys that were $150, $200, $300, or some of the like higher end ones. We did have like a demo so that we would put a tissue over it, and we could get people to feel what it was like, experience, but like feel the different settings, and just, it's a higher end item, so you want to like make a better sale. A lot of people would be like, "Ooh, it's a demo, you're gonna demonstrate it for us?" Like, I swear that happened almost every single time. We were like, "Do you want to see the demo toy?" But I was showing him one of the demo, I'm pretty sure it was a We Vibe, and he ran out and got into a cab, like a taxi that was sitting out front. And I ran out of the store and I was screaming at the top of my lungs, like, "He took my toy, he took my dildo." And I was yelling for the security guards next door to help, because it was, even though it was a demo toy, it was like still expensive. And I understand now, like, how silly that must have looked for a girl to be running out of an adult store being like, "He took my toy." But at the time I was like, "Someone help me." He took my dildo. His friends ended up grabbing it and giving it back, because I was the only one in the store. I couldn't like stay outside. In the other store that I worked at, we didn't really have the need for security. It was in a different part of the city, kind of like surrounded by restaurants and Target and like shoe stores. And that particular store wasn't open through the graveyard shifts on the weekend. However, that store did have a lot of busier periods. It was a bigger store. It also had a cinema, but it was downstairs instead of upstairs. That was the store where if we wanted to turn on the air conditioning, we had to like put a key into this lock thing that was these like exposed wires. It was like the part of the wall was missing. I realize now that my boss probably wasn't like the best of bosses. Anyway, sometimes that particular store got so busy during like certain times of the day, we would have a helper come. So it wasn't just us, but we had someone there helping for like a few hours or 4 hours. So one day I was working there with one of my very best friends. She was behind the counter helping someone, and then I was in the fitting area. I'm fairly positive it was a new We Vibe, and somehow she was like really slick and confused my friend and grabbed the We Vibe. We watched this on the security cameras afterwards, but we saw my friend like literally leap across the counter and jump over, and she was yelling out that she was stealing the toy. And so I dropped the corset that I had, and for some reason I went chasing after her. I don't know why. I was in this like hot pursuit. Right next to us was a bunch of little boutiques. So if you can imagine like running through all these people trying to chase this woman, she was so tiny and so fast. And by the time I got to the end of where all these boutique shops were, I was like, "Why am I doing this? Like, what the heck?" It wasn't worth risking my safety. Not that I felt threatened, but I do remember our boss telling us, like, if anyone ever wants money or the situation has escalated, like, your safety is number one. Don't try to like wrestle with people or get a product back. Like, at the end of the day, it's just a product. But there I found myself again in a situation in public being like, "Hey, stop that woman. She's got a dildo." I can't remember if I told this story already, so apologies if I do repeat myself, but back in the other store where it was more surrounded by like pubs and clubs, There was one time a guy, I'm fairly positive he was homeless, but he came in and he was looking at the magazines, and I saw him putting magazines down his pants. There was a certain stage of working at the adult store where I started to just like really not care about crappy customers, in the sense that I had no problem just screaming at the top of my lungs like, get those things out of your pants, or like there's a video where I talked about wankers. Like, it reached a certain point where I was like, stop jerking off, like in front of the whole store, because I had no issue embarrassing them because they were just annoying and pissing me off. So this particular guy, he had the magazines down his pants and I was yelling at him to get them out, and he ended up pulling out a box cutter. And I did tell the story because I called the cops and they were super, super late. And by the time they came to the store, it was like 4 of them, and they came in looking at all the lingerie and looking at all the clothes and the toys, and I was like, thanks guys. So at the bigger store, there was a time where we were swapping over shifts, and I had arrived a little bit early, but I was starting my shift. And usually whenever you started your shift, no matter what time of the day it was, you would typically go through the store, because it's a retail store, so you need to make sure that everything's merchandised correctly, there's no like mess laying around. If there's any stock that needed to be put away, just kind of prioritize what you were doing in the day. So as I was walking around to the gondolas, I came to the ring section. Am I allowed to say that? Ring section? I don't know what's allowed on YouTube, like the rings for men down there. Anyway, so I went to that section and I saw there was an empty box, and it was like a fairly large, not like super expensive, but you know, $35, $40 dong. And am I allowed to say that word? Okay, whatever. But it was an empty box, and I picked it up and just held it in the air in front of all the customers, in front of everyone, and I was like, hey, to my friend who was working, somebody stole this. And the guy she was helping was like tall, really, really buff. Like in Australia, all the guys were like rugby shorts. So as an American, it was interesting to see that compared to all the like low basketball shorts that guys wear here. And he was asking my friend about I can't remember what they were talking about, but he was like on his way out, like, okay, thanks for helping. Anyways, I'm gonna get going now, like trying to wrap up their conversation. When I yelled out, hey, someone stole this, there was only a few other customers in the store, and when you did come in, you did have to leave your bag at the entrance. I don't know why, but for some reason, his face, like a cartoon, he got so red, his veins started like popping. Like, his veins were popping out around his like forehead and his eyes, and like all along his arms, and he was like, mate, are you accusing me of stealing something? Sorry, it's been a minute since I've like lived in Australia, so my accent's kind of like rusty. So he got really aggravated, like, you accusing me? What are you trying to say, mate? Oi, Siggy butt brain. And so as I was walking towards him, and she was trying to get around the counter to talk to him because he was just irrational at this point, he ended up storming out of the store. And where he was standing yelling at us in front of the counter, we walked over there and we found the dong. So, I mean, he was wearing like a tank top. He didn't have any bag on him. So we imagined that he somehow stashed it like in his shorts. So the last shoplifting incident that comes to my mind really frustrates me, because I still can't wrap my mind around if it was done like intentionally, like with these two people in coordination. So this guy comes in, he was an adult, he looks like a grown up, and he's talking to me. I'm behind the counter and he's asking me a lot of questions about like, when does the store close? When does the cinema open? How many people are in there? I might make a separate video all on the cinema. I do not miss being asked that question. Are there any girls there? But he was asking a lot of basic questions. When do you close? What about the weekends? And as he started asking me these questions, this kid who literally looked like the kid from Stuart Little, like is that the movie? He was like tiny, blonde, spiked hair. He had a massive backpack on. He comes in like behind this guy, and it seems like he knew his way around, and he went straight for where we keep the biggest of the big of the dongs and the dildos. I'm talking like really big. So I was trying to say to the guy that was speaking to me, like, excuse me, could you just hold on one second? And I was screaming at the kid. I was like, oi, I need to see your ID. You're not supposed to be in here. By the time I could like finish calling that out and start to get to the end of the counter, the kid had put a huge dildo in his backpack and already dashed out the store. I turned around to the guy and he was like, okay, well, anyways, thanks. I guess I'll come back later. It could have been a coincidence. I just don't know. I don't know if they were like testing to see if a little kid could sneak into an adult store. One time we did have journalists sneak in and we were on the news, but it wasn't me. It was a woman who her parents didn't know she worked there. I'm gonna have to check and see if I spoke about that as well, and if not, I can tell you guys next time. Every now and then there were like little items that people would try to swipe, or they got away with swiping, and we just like straight up didn't notice. You know, when you have like bucks or hen, or what am I saying? Bachelorette or bucks, what am I trying to say, Rusty? Bachelorette or bachelor, like toys. I don't know, like little fake like naked men, or little like ice cube trays in the shape of genitals, like things like that. Speaking of the rings, some of the nicer ones were in like cases, and you know, occasionally we would find like a case open, but it was pretty rare. Sometimes we did have those little super cheap, like $5–10 like knockoff fleshlights, which were just like handheld. You know, I appreciate anyone who's come here from my Chantal or Foodie Beauty video. Working at an adult store in the past, it was really interesting to me that she made that joke about getting a boyfriend doll, because I don't think people realized she started getting into the torsos even when they were small, but still supposed to be adult-like, but they were still like pretty tiny. Those were heavy. One time someone special ordered in one that was supposed to be like a full-length like body, and it was really weird again, because whenever they're made out of that fake flesh, they're a lot smaller than you think, but they're so dense and heavy. So this guy special ordered one, and it was really weird because it kind of looked like barely adult sized compared to actual human people. But he had such a hard time carrying it out of the store. So, you know, would have been really interesting to see Pete have to help her carry that. I hope that you enjoyed. Please stay tuned for more adult store videos, and I might sprinkle in some other crazy customer stories from when I worked at a call center. Let me know if you have any questions down below. I'll put some links to the other videos as well, and wherever you're on the world, I hope you're having a beautiful day. Bye.